Shalom WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah talk. This week we are reading Parshat Korach, and then I'll be out for a few weeks. So this is really more of a monthly Torah talk. We read Parshat Korach this week in Shul, and Korach can be a troubling story. The leader of this rebellion, Korach, Datan, and Aviram, 250 of their followers come forward. They challenge Moshe's authority. They say, we should have as much power as you, basically. We're all God's holy people. It's a rebellion, right? And it's seditious and it's problematic. And yet the result is that Korach and his followers get swallowed up in the earth by God. A lot of people question the justice of this. It's God dealing out justice. Maybe God doesn't need a trial and whatnot, but it's disturbing. But perhaps even more disturbing is what happens. This is chapter 16 of Bamidbar. Just before that, right, the presence of the Lord appeared to the whole community, and the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Stand back from the community that I may annihilate them in an instant." Now, God doesn't mean just Korach and his followers. He means the entire Jewish community. And that's problematic, right? There's innocents. Not everybody was involved in Korach's rebellion. So it seems that innocents are being caught up with the evil of Korach. Now, how could it be? Is God's justice such that the guilty get caught up, that the innocent get caught up with the guilty? And we know, this comes back to the very basic roots of Judaism, right? When Abraham, protests on behalf of Sodom and Gomorrah, his protest is, what if there's even a handful of innocents here? Are we going to let them get caught up with the guilty? That would be unjust. Abraham tells God that God will be unjust. But the answer is, in fact, yes, that the innocent can be caught up with the guilty, that God can punish the innocent for a specific crime along with the guilty. Particularly, it seems, in a communal crime like this. We read in the Mechilta, right? It says, once permission has been given to the destroyer to do injury, right? Once God sends an angel to destroy, it no longer delineates between the innocent and the guilty. The question is why? Why? And the answer seems to be that when there's a rebellion like this, when society has gone so far off the rails, there's no such thing as innocence, that we are all, in one way or another, responsible, either for our own actions or for not creating the kind of society and culture where things like this don't happen. So what do Moses and Aaron say? Right? What happens? Do the innocent get punished with the guilty? The answer is no. Moses and Aaron intervened. They fell on their faces and they said, "Oh God, source of breath and all flesh, when one man sins, will you be wrathful with the whole community?" He says, you can't do this. This is not just. We will stand up for what is right. And even in the face of God, just like Abraham, so many generations before, try and intervene on behalf of what is right and what is good. And because they do, God relents, and he says, okay, fine, speak to the community and tell them to withdraw. There have been a number of things that have gone over the last week or two that have a lot of us questioning our culture and how things are working. I'm not commenting on politics per se, but I am commenting on the uneasiness when people's rights are questioned, when what we thought was one way a week ago is overnight a different way, and that it affects people's lives and people's status. Society is a little disorienting and disturbing right now. And there is a tendency, we see it a lot in our culture in particular, right, to point fingers and say, that person's wrong, that person is doing the wrong thing. But you know what? That doesn't do anything. There's no such thing as the innocent in cases like this. This is a societal problem, and we are part of the society. And finger pointing and yelling and screaming, while it may be cathartic and very satisfying, doesn't really help. Doesn't really change the policy, doesn't bring the stability that we are so longing for, particularly when it comes to people's rights and their status in our society. The only way to do that is to do like Moshe and Aaron do, to fall on our own faces, to admit our culpability in what is going on, and to say we are going to do what we need to do to change it. For Moses and Aaron, that's crying out and being heard, and we need to do some of that, crying out and being heard. We also need to reflect on what it is in our own behaviors and the society that we've enabled that has allowed it to come to this point. Right? Moses and Aaron fall on their face. That is a guilty reaction. Why are they falling on their faces? Korach and his followers, they're the bad guys. But the truth is, splitting the world into bad guys and good guys, it's not the way the world really works. It's a false split. And ultimately, like the Midrash teaches us, when it comes to the consequences, suffering the consequences of what's going on in the world, we are all in this together. So I want to encourage us as we embark on the summer, as we kind of reset for the next year to come, at least Jewish year and school year to come, to reflect on what is it we can do to make this culture, this society, our lives, our neighbors' lives better. Actively do. Not what can we post on social media, not who can we blame and who can we say is bad and awful, and if it wasn't for them, if it weren't for them, society would be better. But what can we do today, tomorrow, in the future to make this society better? Whatever that means to us. Ultimately, this is a moment to fall on our faces, to say none of us have done enough, and to do what we can to make sure that the future is better. To speak up on behalf of the whole community, on behalf of all those whose status is questioned, whose rights are being compromised. And together, to make a difference, to protect the innocent, and ultimately to make this a society and a culture worthy of rewards and not punishment, whatever that looks like. Worthy of the benefits of good neighbors and meaningful living and happiness, and not suffering the consequences of the haves and have-nots, of the people unsure of if they belong, where they belong, how to belong, people living in unstable family relationships because their status is being questioned, and so on and on. It's in our hands. This is not a time to point fingers. This is a time to fall on our faces, to cry out, and to do good to make this society better. May we all do so. May we all feel the pride of living in this great nation, which remains a great nation, in this wonderful country, which remains a wonderful country, in large part because at times we find it dissatisfying. We have the right to cry out. We have the right to make a difference. Let's make a difference. Shabbat Shalom.